Hello, everyone. This is Ruben Ortiz, and today we're going to be discussing AI, large language models, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and it is a brief presentation on the basics. So, if you're just starting out, this is the video for you. I'm going to have some quick tips that you can use right away. So, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, bring up that presentation. AI, be useful. Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote a book called Be Useful, the Seven Tools for Life. And in that book, he encourages us to ask ourselves, how can I be useful today? And that is the approach that I've taken in crafting this presentation. I'm going to share some of my most useful tips and things that I've learned along the way and that you can begin to use immediately. So, what do I mean when I say AI? By the way, I can share the PDF of these presentations with you. If you reach out to me, I'm gonna post this on YouTube and on LinkedIn. If you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I will send you the PDF of this presentation. So it's a good way to get all the notes without having to take them yourself. So what do I mean? Large language models, which capture both the promise and the limitations of the technology. It doesn't experience the world. It doesn't know things the way people do. It does predict text. It does reason through patterns in language. And that's even when it's creating images. So it's important distinction that AI has no intent, no awareness, no lived experience. It reasons through language, even when it is creating images. They can be very human like when we're interacting with them. And so it can be somewhat tempting to treat the AI as human. But as we'll see as we go through, it's better at detecting patterns and sifting through large amounts of information than it is replacing the human experience. The paralegal analogy, I use this as AI is currently an awesome partner. So it's a great analogy to think of it as if you're the lawyer, the AI is more along the lines of your paralegal, where the lawyer is doing the strategic thinking, the relationship building, while the paralegal is doing the research, the first draft passes, documents, organizing facts, spotting patterns in large volumes of information, and handling repetitive procedural tasks. So that's what it's most good at, right? And it's not to say that the paralegal is going to be replaced, but we're going to be rethinking a lot of jobs, and what it is that is the most efficient and best way of utilizing technology. The technology is here, and so we all have to adjust. So it's not going to replace that judgment, the accountability, and the relationship building of a human being, but perhaps some of the things that we want to pass off, like organizing facts and handling these repetitive tasks, just a way to think about it. My first tip, my number one tip is to get the paid version. Get the paid version, whether it's Gemini, Claude, or ChatGPT. It's way more of a value add than, say, your Netflix subscription. I like HBO Max, and my paid version of Claude and ChatGPT has a way better return of investment, right? With the paid version, you're going to get better models, longer context, more tools, and just an overall better experience. So, my number one tip is to get the paid version of the tech. Jump right in. True camera video guidance. A lot of times I'll be using ChatGPT or Claude to, well, mainly ChatGPT to do play by play things. Like I have an example here of fixing a sink, which I've done a lot of do it yourself projects with, if you want it to guide you through software. So you go ahead, but one of the cool things is Gemini has added a live video feature. So if I click on it now, hello, Claude, I'm doing a presentation.
Hello. It looks like you're highlighting tip two, true live camera guidance. Is there something specific about this slide you'd like to discuss?
Yes, can you provide us a real life example where true live camera guidance on Gemini could be useful?
Sure. As the slide titled Tip 2, True Live Camera Guidance suggests, one real life example is DIY troubleshooting. Imagine you're trying to fix a leaky pipe. Gemini could provide step by step guidance by analyzing the situation through your phone's camera, just like the graphic on the screen demonstrates.
Thank you. No, I cut him off before you said you're welcome, but it's very tempting to treat them as human. And I often do speak to them in a very personable way. But the point is here is to use true live camera guidance on Gemini is potentially a very powerful tool. It immediately recognized what I was doing here and then provided tips live. You can only imagine where that's eventually going to end up going. An interesting note, OpenAI has recently connected to apps on its interface. ChatGPT's operating system is allows you to add hardware devices similar to Apple. So there's a lot of things that continually develop in this realm, right? No, the ChatGPT is considered creating their own hardware devices similar to Apple. Excuse me if I didn't say that correctly, but these things are constantly developing. For example, ChatGPT at the time of this video did not have true live camera guidance. They they probably won't for a while, but Gemini does, and so there's some useful ways of using that, and you could think of a ton of ways to use that. This part of it, I was working in the realm of communications within the federal government. Has been a very tumultuous past year in with Doge coming into the federal government and making a lot of changes. And initially, I had looked at it as a massive disruptor, which it actually was, but was a blessing in disguise, and that it helped me to do accomplish a lot of things in the past year, like securing a HELOC for a basement remodel. I had to sell a house in 30 days, navigated all kinds of do-it-yourself repairs to prepare for the possibility of perhaps not being employed after a significant amount of time. And the point of that is to say that during that time, I dove deeply into AI and it helped me navigate these things quite a bit. And so when I initially did this presentation, I talked about how in 2019 I had intentions of purchasing a cyber truck. It had been a while before that actually came out. And so it actually came out in the year that we're going through all this tumultuous experience. So needless to say, I didn't purchase the Cybertruck. I still think it's a cool vehicle, but I ended up getting this truck instead. But this part of the presentation was just to let people know all of the different things that AI can help you with in your personal life and how beneficial it was for me going through a very tumultuous time, being able to start transition in my career, perhaps secure my finances in different ways and navigating all those different things that took place at that time. So that was that part of the presentation. What may be useful for you is that there is a resume arms race along the lines of looking for a job or being ready for the next chapter in your career. Is that AI is writing a ton of applications, it's screening applicants, and the volume has exploded. And so, one of the ways they've remedied this is they have put in these trick language. And the example used here is somebody placed the word Jabberwocky into one of their position descriptions. And so an employee put it on their cover letter that they could Jabberwocky with the best of them. And that's just an example of something for you to be aware of that's happening, as people are posting hundreds of resumes and those are being evaluated, is that, these are some of the different ways that folks are checking, that you're double checking what it is that the job that you're applying for, and you're personalizing it to that particular job, and you're not just submitting hundreds across the board. So use AI as a co-pilot, not a driver. Add real achievements, verify the requirements, and check the posting before you hit send. Just a little tidbit there. The smartest button on my desk across every 2025 project that AI assisted me with, it helped me see through uncertainty, rate, weigh the trade-offs, avoid costly mistakes, and have a deeper understanding when I'd have these conversations with the experts. It's particularly good at that. So if you're going to be speaking to somebody that's doing a renovation at your house, or you're going in to get different loan information, it's good to have that upfront information before you go into those conversations, to also look at some of the possibilities and things like that. So you don't have to be the expert. Henry Ford once said that he didn't need to be the smartest engineer. He just needed a button that would summon the best minds in the world. So for me, AI has become that button on my desk. The hidden paradox of utilization of AI. If people suspect that you're using AI, it changes how they read your work. I once built a GPT that would track news and used it to help draft a presentation. I added a few lines that weren't what the client asked for, and I received a response something to like, "Thank you for the quick draft. I noticed several slides referencing topics that didn't directly relate to our program. I understand that AI and machine learning can be challenging." Now, there's a couple of things that I could have done. I probably viewed it more as a brainstorming session where I was providing ideas, which may have been a mistake on my part. But the more broader thing, and this was an article that was written in Harvard Business Review, is that people are going to view the work that you're doing through a less competent lens, perhaps. They might view it as negatively if they feel that they suspect that you're using AI, and that's kind of where this was going. So I just use it as an example of how that can be misconstrued. And I don't want it to be an impediment to where you want to go with artificial intelligence. I still want you to be able to dive in and do it in spite of that hidden penalty that people are perceiving right now, because the risk of not doing it is not going to be as beneficial as if you just go ahead and do it. Taking that hit on the from initially is going to be a lot better trade off long term by using the technology. So don't let it impede you, but just be aware that that is out there. It's something that has been identified and has been written about in the Harvard Review. And it's even on applicants. It's weird. So we're talking about applications, submitting an application. There's some people that are seeing the application and realizing that they're using AI on it and they'll throw it away. But don't you want people that are familiar with the technology that had enough foresight to use it to try to get a job? So, we're going to, as things develop, I think we'll change our mind, a lot of folks, on how this technology is being utilized, but it should not stop you from learning as much as you can and benefiting from what it can do now. Prompting, we can go on. There's a ton of information on prompting. So I'm just going to give you two quick tips, two of my best. Prompting is like a somewhat like a Google search. If you ever listen to a podcast where someone's able to pull up the information on Google very quickly, that same person is probably pretty good at prompting. I found a correlation between the two. But beyond that, defining the role for the AI, it performs better when you tell it what it's supposed to be. So, for example, if you were going to do some financing, you would say something in the realm of finance. You'd say, "You are a financial advisor specializing in retirement planning," being very specific to the AI, what the result is in the role that you want to have the language model replicate. So being upfront and telling you that it's a financial advisor, for me, I'd like to say something like, "You're a communications director preparing leadership talking points." So you're going to tell it that you're in communications, it's at that director level, and you're preparing specific leadership talking points. One that I've used is that you're an award-winning interior designer with decades of experience specializing in residential basement renovations. AI actually helped me to heavily renovate the space here, from colors to furniture to the layout. This back part is the actual like theater part. There's a giant TV and there's some audio equipment there. And if you don't think that looks good, you should have seen it before. It's terrible. But just prompting it that you're an award-winning interior designer with decades of experience specializing in basement renovations is being very specific on what the GPT is. I asked GP to give me a more polished version of that. You're an award-winning interior designer known for timeless, low regret residential basements. The word low regret tells the AI that you want it changes that aren't going to right away be irrelevant, right? You want these long-term decisions being made. So I think that's great. So number one is to tell the AI specifically who it is and how, in what context they are working. Bribing somewhat. I don't want to. So that's a strong word, but sometimes adding a little personality, some stakes to the game help it. So my promotion depends on this report. So make it shine. How about you're competing for a $10,000 prize for the clearest explanation? That's one that ChatGPT provided. You're competing for a $10,000 prize. Why not a $100,000 prize? Why not $1 million prize? It might be interesting exercise I haven't done is to ask it the $10,000 question, $100,000 question, and $1 million question, and see what the difference was in the result that you got. And then you could even dial it in further. So those are my two best tips. You're getting the tone, the level, the context, the standards. You're you're being intentional. It makes the prompt more intentional. So you're not tricking the AI, but you're perhaps coaching it to get the best result. Tell it who it is and then set the expectations with a little bit of bribing. Those are my two best tips in prompting, some that you could use immediately. I, at this point, when I did this team presentation, did a walkthrough of a job analysis where we would we'd create a GPT, which is a way for a chat GPT to reference specific documents, something that you're doing over and over, repetitive tasks. You don't have to keep uploading the same document or telling it to reference the same document. These are all set up ahead of time. And so I walk you through GPTs. I'm not going to do that right now. And some of the content was proprietary from Masterclass online, the Masterclass video series, and it provided a PDF that I walked through. But if you are interested in something like that, let me know. I'm going to be posting this on LinkedIn. Just reach out to me. That might be a future video where we talk about GPTs. But the takeaway from here is that if you haven't already dived into that world of GPTs, something to look at is to create a quick, and it's very simple, create a quick GPT and just start getting your feet wet in that realm, right? And maybe in a future time, we could do this workforce performance exercise. What a lot of times it comes down to is just it provides a fantastic analysis of like what chat GPT can be used for and what should be still considered a core part of your job. And more than likely, that's going to be the human interaction piece, the building of relationships, the communication, that kind of stuff. So let me know if you're interested in that. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Titan of the 80s, had some simple advice to be useful. AI won't replace what makes us human, our judgment, our empathy, our creativity, our integrity, but it can simplify all of those things if we use it wisely. So, the question straight from the Terminator himself, how can I be useful, more useful with AI today? And hopefully, I've been useful to you as well. And you have an excellent day.